Good morning. Welcome to my garden on our Golden Acre. We garden in western Pennsylvania, and in this space last year we grew about 500 pounds of food. I think we're on track to get about the same or more this year, and I just wanted to share with you what it looks like here almost the end of July. Starting here in our back corner, we planted some potatoes here, and we are just starting to see some peeking up. So there's some coming up around the hay, and then right in the back there, right beside the sweet potatoes, we've got some coming up. So if you had joined us for that video, the potatoes looked pretty sad, but they're still growing. Along the back of the garden here is our pole beans. These are called cave beans from Baker Creek. They're going to be a dried bean. Last year I think we had about 10 pounds from our cave beans, and I think we're on track to get more this year. I didn't plant the whole length of the fence last year, and we have a better trellising system. Even though they're to the top, past the top, I think I could double this trellis and I think they'd still reach the top of it, but I'm not equipped to build a 20-foot trellis. The next thing we have beside our sweet potatoes that are doing very well. You're going to see sweet potatoes in multiple places in the garden. They store really well, they taste fantastic, and we were using our last year from harvest, from after we cured them until March. So they were just a wonderful pantry staple to have, and they just stored really well. I have trouble storing potatoes, so if there's anybody out there that has the trick to keeping potatoes from sprouting in storage, let me know, because mine just tend to sprout very early. So we've just started using them as soon as we harvest. We try to eat potatoes a lot so that all of them don't end up sprouting on us. We have a few potatoes here. And again, let me show you. I just saw some of the beans from the cave bean. Where'd they go? So right there at the top, there's one of the beans. Here's one of our they're like a cream colored and red speckled bean, kind of about the size of a kidney bean. We used those as hummus and rice and beans and chili and things like that last year. Worked well, and we still actually have a little bit left. Okay. And then here we have multiple places where I have tucked tomatoes. We've got German pink or brandywine, black strawberry, and Amish paste. Amish paste are definitely one of our go-to tomatoes. They're just very, very universal and produce really well. I keep thinking I'm actually going to drink my coffee through this process, but I keep just setting it down so I can talk. Okay, so here is, this bed right here is actually where we'd wintered our chickens the first winter we had them. Another thing you're going to see lots of places is black beans. These are getting close to finishing up. I've already actually picked a couple of the plants and hung them to dry. We've got basil that actually looks like it needs to be made into some pesto here soon. And then a black bumblebee sunrise tomato plant. This here is an experiment for this year. I'm trying, a couple weeks ago, I put some Romas in the ground to get a later shot, a later producing shot of tomatoes. So we have 4 there, and then I have a few that I started from suckers, Amish paste, and aroma. And then here we have some cabbage that's still going. Actually, I need to harvest this head. This is one I actually harvested, and then it started putting off a side shoot that's producing a nice little head of cabbage. So I'm going to let this go because I'm just curious what it's going to do. And then this is where we typically plant our garlic. This is where our garlic was that we harvested. And after I harvested, I put compost down and planted buckwheat. The buckwheat helps to keep the soil loose, it shades the soil and keeps the moisture in, and these nice broad leaves shade out the weeds. So what I'm gonna do when it's time, I should have gotten out here a little bit earlier, when it's time to plant is I'm just gonna come in and cut those off and use the, the plant as the mulch and plant our garlic in there. And then whatever nutrients those plants pulled up from the soil is gonna break right back down, because these plants break down very quickly. We also have a single tomato plant here. It looks like multiples because I don't have it staked up and it's just growing along the ground. That's one I'm just letting that go and seeing if it produces anything. Now back to the corner where I started, we've got Brussels sprouts, beans. I planted these. I mentioned, I confessed in an earlier video that I really hate string beans. I just hate the texture of them. I've tried multiple ways and I just don't like them. But I do like them either fermented or canned as dilly beans. So we've done both. We've water bath canned them to make dilly beans, which is just basically like a pickle but with beans instead of cucumbers. And I've fermented them. Really enjoy those so far. And then behind are our tomatoes. These are our Amana oranges. Take a look at that cluster of fruit there. These are just a really good tasting slicer tomato. And we really enjoy those. Now I'm going to kind of zigzag through the garden. Right there is our sweet potatoes, which are trying to completely take over. That is the top to like a black composter. See if you can see it in there. It's an old composter that I've used as my sweet potato raised bed for a number of years now, and they're just flowing over it completely and taking over. Here's the vine that's gotten the furthest away so far. It's always a trick in the garden of not stepping on everything as you're going through. We don't have a lot going on in the brick beds right now because I pulled out our peas, but we've got some basil, rosemary, and a sweet pepper plant, and there's some thyme and some volunteer tomatoes at the far end, as well as some basil. I'm going to plant some fall things in here yet. I just haven't decided exactly what. And then here is the base to that composter that's on the other end that I'm again using just as a raised bed. And we've got sweet potatoes that are again trying to take over the entire garden there. A little bed with some walking onions. I believe this onion is starting to do the walking portion of its life there. Here, Roma tomatoes, brandywine, Amish paste, and some lettuce leaf basil, peppers, and wild rocket arugula that I'm just letting blossom and bring in pollinators and parasitic wasps. Okay, let's go to the far end of the garden here. Let's just hide from the sun for a second. All right, so here is, here's where we have our winter squash. We've got 3 different kinds in here. You'll also see a lot of this plant here. This is a radish that I planted specifically for the purpose of letting it blossom. Again, to bring in the beneficial insects and try to manage in an organic manner our cucumber beetles and our squash bugs. Over on this side, we have a small butternut squash. So here is one of them. This is the first year I've grown this. Over on this side, we have delicata first. That's this squash right here. And then we finish out with a bigger butternut squash, and there's one of them. Now this kind we've been growing for a couple years, and it grows a really, really big butternut squash, and the flavor is really good. The problem we found is they're so big, you can't just use one for for a recipe. You need to either plan multiple things or you need to freeze part of it. And sometimes during the busy weeknights when our girls are in activities and I'm a school teacher and have obligations there, it's hard to deal with something that needs preserved along with cooking, and so I wanted some smaller ones, so that's why we planted those. And actually I'm just to show you right here. Those are squash bug eggs. Anytime you see those, we're just going to wipe those off. We can't get them all, but we can take off some. Okay. Here's our tumbling Tom tomato plant. We're starting to get some ripening on that. The color looks really good. So that's been fun to have this year. And then this is an experiment I did. I did this mainly for people that are out there that don't maybe have a lot of space to garden, kind of as an economical way to try growing something. Now this is an idea I used from Roots and Refuge. Jess had grown greens this way by poking holes in a bag of soil, flipping it over and cutting the rectangle out and using that as the container. So I used 2 different bags of soil, one that you can still see, one that you can't. This was just an organic garden soil. The sweet potatoes are not doing real well in this one. This plant's starting to perk up a little bit. The color looks a little better, but the color and the amount of growth is telling me that they're not real happy in here. You can see that it's very coarse. There's a lot of like full pieces of wood chip and that kind of thing. Now this one is a bag of potting soil, and the plants in this one were the same size as the plants in this one when I started out, and they are massive. So they obviously are much happier in here. That's really no big surprise, because potting soil is formulated to be able to provide what a plant needs in the container, whereas garden soil is set up to be put in a garden bed, possibly with other things. So it's not like this garden soil isn't good, but it was just an experiment. Like, I just wanted to see how it worked. The garden soil was $7, the potting soil was $12. So obviously, cost-wise, you know, one was considerably cheaper than the other one. But I think if you were to try this, you probably are a lot better off going with the potting soil versus the garden soil. But we'll see what the harvest looks like. Beside that is another bed of in-ground sweet potatoes. And then here is going to be our fall decorations. The corn's done. We didn't get to harvest all of it because we were on vacation when that came in. So I'm just letting it finish on the cob. I'll use some of it for seed for next year, and the rest I'll just bag up and have for some additional chicken feed. We'll cut off the stalks and bundle those to use as decoration for fall. Now, I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about right here. This is going to be fall space that I'm going to be turning over, so there'll be a video on this bed fairly soon. Okay. All right, so I'm back here. Here's the bottom to our composter with the sweet potatoes on it. I went and searched for my coffee so I could have a little bit of coffee while I finish up here. So we have the last part is the original part of the garden. Everything that I just did is what's been added on. Funny enough, when we moved in, my husband said our kids were really little and he didn't want the garden to get any bigger. So the part that I'm about to show you is what was like bricked off as the garden when we moved in. Everything I just showed you has been added on. So this bed's finishing out. Almost all these onions have been harvested. They're drying on our patio. This next bed is our sweet peppers. They're doing amazing. We've harvested probably 6 or 7 pounds of peppers so far. We've eaten a ton of them. We've fermented some. We need to start freezing. So we've got banana and Hungarian wax. One was supposed to be spicier than the other one, but we haven't found that to be the case. We have shishitos, which are just going crazy. We could eat 15 or 20 of them, I think, every day. And at the far end of the bed is we've got our bell peppers. Okay. Here are our black beans. Again, they're starting to finish out. So as they finish, I just kind of cut the plant off, bundle them, and hang them up under cover to dry. And here is the success story of the garden for this year. We have not had a ton of luck with cucumbers. We haven't done a ton, but when we have done them, we've got maybe a few. Last year we got none. Not a single one was able to make it past the cucumber beetles. This year we've probably harvested 20-25 pounds of cucumbers. We've fermented, we've canned, we've made relish, and we still have some, and we've eaten them fresh, and we still have some in the fridge that need something done with them fairly soon. So these are doing wonderful. This is just 4 plants. We're trellising them up. I mean, they are kind of taking over a little bit of the space here, but the trellis has worked very well. And also hiding in here, these are going to be carrot seeds for next year. I had a carrot that I missed when I harvested, so I left it, and it has blossomed. This is like, you'll see these blossoms everywhere. This is one carrot. 1, it's beautiful. 2, it's bringing in our beneficials, and 3, it's going to be carrot seeds to use for future gardens. Okay, this is our second round of sweet corn. They're starting to tassel, and we're getting some Japanese beetle damage on the leaves, but they're going to be just fine through all of that. And I did see somewhere, yeah, we're starting to get some silk for the ears of corn. Those are coming along. I've got carrots here. There were onions in here. You can see one left there. Probably going to plant something in there, and then our zucchini. And again, you'll see the radish, the blossoms from the radishes around there. All right, I was going to finish the tour and sign off down in the garden, but Luke just came down. He moved the chickens, and he found something cool that I want to show you. We've been showing our monarch butterflies and our parsley caterpillars in different shots and things in our videos, and he found, I'm not even sure how he found it. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Oh, can't, right there. There, thanks babe, is a cocoon for our monarch butterflies we've been showing. So awesome to find, and we'll keep an eye on that. That will be kind of fun. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you in the next video.